can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have David Bitton of DoorLoop. You can check him out at doorloop.com. David, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes of the podcast people should check out. This is part of the Top SaaS series. It's also part of the Top Israel Business Leader series. Some of the top SaaS fan favorites, David, episodes over the years. I did an episode with Zapier, the founder of Zapier, Wade Foster. That was a really good one. I did the one with the founder of Mailshake and how they grew to like 70,000 users. Pipedrive was a good one. Pipedrive, I think when I interviewed them, there were 10,000 customers. Now they're over 100,000. That was a really great one. Also, the founder of Jotform and how they grew to 25 million users, and just some good solid information on how they grew their company. And we're going to get into it today. And this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We do that by helping you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. And we do the strategy, the accountability, and the full execution. So kind of, Dave, we call ourselves the magic elves that run in the background to make it look easy for the host and the company so they can create amazing content, create amazing relationships, and most importantly, run their business. You know, for me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I have personally found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, go to rise25.com or email us at support@rise25.com to learn more. And big shout out to Michael Toss, who introduced David and I. And I'm excited to introduce David Bitton. He's a best-selling author. He's a 5-time serial entrepreneur with 2 previous exits. Today, he's the co-founder of DoorLoop. And DoorLoop is a property management software. They've raised over $130 million. They have over, at this point in time, 200 staff. And they're really helping to reshape the real estate industry. And David, thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Michael, for the introduction.
Just start us off. And there's a video portion to this. So if people are listening to the audio, I'm going to pull up DoorLoop as David's talking right now. But talk about DoorLoop and what you do.
Yeah. So DoorLoop started off as a property management software for residential and commercial property owners and property managers and management companies. Oh, you got it up there on the screen, to help them pretty much manage their portfolio and all their rentals. So collecting rent, managing their accounting, handling maintenance requests, finding new tenants, everything A to Z that you could ever want when owning or managing a property, you could do with DoorLoop.
We'll talk about, because I know you've done this multiple times. This is your 3rd SaaS company. And so we are going to talk about growth and team and scaling and possibly raising money, because $130 million, that's a full-time job raising money too. Congrats on that. But I do want to start with the idea. And then, you know, it's hard to get product market fit and get this going. So talk about the idea. And I think it came from a personal experience.
Yeah, that's right. So when we were running our last company, one of our co-founders and partner at DoorLoop and the CEO of DoorLoop, Ori Tammuz, he was managing his own investment properties. And a lot of the other co-founders also had investment properties, real estate. And there was no easy way to manage the rentals, no easy, affordable way, especially if you had only a handful and not larger companies that can afford thousands of dollars a month. So we knew we could do it better. We knew we could do it more affordable. We knew we can make it easier to use because of our history in SaaS and building software companies. So that's what we set out to do in 2019. And kudos to Ori. He built a rock star team of 5 incredible co-founders, brought in some great investors from early on, and we hit the ground running. And here we are 5 years later, almost 200 people on the team now.
How did you meet your co-founders?
Yeah. So Ori, over the span of his career, we all either worked together or friends or wanted to work together. So with Ori and I, we worked together with other co-founders. He always wanted to work with them, just super talented people in every realm. So, pretty much handpicked the best of the best. So, for example, I was in charge of marketing, and then we had a sales expert, and then we had a customer success expert, and we had a CTO for development. So he just handpicked the best of the best people in their respective fields and grew the company, which is also a great lesson because no one is going to care more about your company than the founders. So we had a founder sitting on top and managing every major department of the company for the first 5 years.
How did you originally meet Ori?
Wow. So shout out to an old friend, Corinne, who is my old neighbor. She introduced me to him after college. This is a long time ago, many, many years ago, over almost 15 years ago. And he was looking to hire someone for his first SaaS company in Miami, Florida. And I joined as employee number 3 at his company. And then after that, that company got acquired. I started my own company that also got acquired. And then we ended up teaming up and starting another company called Practice Panther, which was a legal practice management software.
We'll go back in time a little bit in a few, but how did you divide roles, right? So like I know you are head of marketing, Ori's CEO, and you have other co-founders. Talk about the division of labor.
In this company, it was relatively easy because we had so many co-founders. It's unlikely to have 5 co-founders, so you can have an easier division. Okay, you're only doing sales, you're only doing customer service, you're only doing marketing, you're only doing development. So that was much easier. So for us, it was easy. But in our last company, in the last 2 companies, you have 2 partners. That's much harder. And I think what helped us is the initial, partnership agreement that everyone should have. I see a lot of people not doing that early on, and that's definitely good because it's setting expectations, responsibilities, job titles, job descriptions, maybe scorecards. So, hey, partner, you're in charge of XYZ. Do you agree? Great. I'm in charge of this. We agree? Great. And there's clear lines in the sand. And the hardest thing to figure out, what happens if you have a disagreement between two 50-50 partners, who wins? And that's always the hardest thing. So, even a third partner could be good to mediate those situations. But in our case, anytime we had disagreements, we would just look at the data and A/B test it and see whatever the data says wins. Not who yells the loudest or who has the fanciest title. Whatever the data says wins. We love to test every single thing we can possibly.
So I could see you already know a lot of these, the co-founders and people from previous companies.
Yep.
Ori has this problem, right? And so what's the first thing you do? Did you go out and raise money? Was there proof of concept? What do you do to start DoorLoop?
So like every problem, that that we want to solve, we try to see, okay, this is a personal problem, which is great. We could solve our own problem. We know the pain, but is this a big enough problem? Do other people have the same problem? What are they doing about that problem? Is there a solution for that problem? Is it a good solution? So we look at all those things first. Can we make a better solution? And once we come to that, so a lot of due diligence, maybe a few months of due diligence and research and surveys and analysis and speaking to potential customers and getting demos of competitors also. Then you do market research. How big is the market? So you have the TAM, the total addressable market, the SAM, the serviceable addressable market, and then SOM. You can go on and on and on, but you just want to see, how big is this market? How big can this company be? Can we compete? And then you go from there. And then you start trying to see, okay, who can build it? How do we market it? What's the marketing strategy? What's the business plan? You build all that, and then it's off to the races, start going.
So you discovered at that point from the research, yes, we definitely, there's a huge addressable market. I think we can, dominate as far as a solution goes. I'm curious early on, right? Because building a product is a big deal. How do you decide features, right? Like right now, we're looking at the features page. I don't know if that's grown over time or you launched with certain features to start. Talk about the idea behind what do you start with from a feature perspective?
Yeah. So just one last thing in the last question. People always say to me, "Hey, so do you have competitors?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we have a lot of competitors." Well, isn't that bad? So to me, not really, because if it's a market where there's no competition, it's going to be rare that you found some random market with zero competition today in 2020, 5 when this is recorded, posted. So to me, it shows me the market is big enough for everyone to eat a piece of the pie. And it is a gigantic market. So we don't necessarily need to dominate the competitors and take over. People always say, I just want 1% of the market. And sometimes 1% is gigantic. It's big enough. So that's always what I say. And then number two, what features to build first? There's an amazing book that we love called Lean Startup by Eric Ries. You're nodding your head. I'm sure you've heard of it. And they always say you want to build your MVP, your minimum viable product. What's the basic version that you're almost embarrassed to launch as a beta product? Just get some early testers, see what they want, see what they need. What are their pain points? The mistake we see a lot of people make when building their own companies, they'll build and build. They'll be in stealth mode for 3 years and they launch and then no one cares. And everyone's like, well, I don't really care for that feature. Oh, wow. Why did we spend a year building that feature? So early on, we launched quickly, maybe within 12 months. It does take time to still build the software, even with a good team, and it does cost considerable amount of money. So we launched and then just listen to our customers. And as a founder, it's your responsibility to have as many calls with customers as much as possible and hear from them and see what they need and what are their pain points. And then you build from there. In our case, it was a little bit different. Also, we knew the market we wanted to go into. There was a lot of competitors. So you could also see, hey, every competitor has to collect rent. It's a basic necessity. Every competitor has to have accounting. So we already knew the core features that needed to be built out. That's a little bit easier for us.
Talk about raising money. Do you decide to raise money from the get-go?
Yeah. So historically, no, we always wanted to what's called bootstrapping, which is just grow organically, maybe invest a little bit of our own money, maybe a lot of our own money, depending how much money you have in the beginning. So I personally love starting companies without a lot of money behind us because it makes you very scrappy and it makes you think of all the organic growth hacking strategies you can do to grow your company and be really lean and mean and apply for startup loans. And, when we first signed up to maybe it was Slack or Intercom or Zendesk, they have startup packages for companies that don't raise money. So you can get, AWS has AWS credits. There's a lot of really cool things you can get as a startup that you cannot get if you've raised a lot of money. So number one. And number two, as the marketer speaking, now that we have money to invest, we're not focusing so much on those free organic hacks that someone else might focus on. But in the beginning, we did a lot of that. So that's also very important. So there's a lot of people that make the mistake, in my opinion, that's like, oh, yeah, I want to start this company, but I have to raise $20 million. I'm like, why do you have to raise $20 million? To build the best app of the world. I was like, can you prove the concept for $1,000 for free, maybe? So, it makes you think differently. And I think for us, we always wanted to hit product market fit before raising money to prove the concept out, number one, to not get distracted, because it does take a lot of time and effort and energy to raise money, number two. And then number three, if you're raising money and you're pre-idea, pre-seed, pre-revenue, pre-launch, you're giving away a lot more equity of your company because it's a lot riskier for the investor versus, hey, I'm 5 million of ARR. We hit product market fit. Oh, okay, great. Your valuation is much higher now. So that was.
So at what point did you decide with DoorLoop that, okay, it's time to raise money?
So with us, since this was our third SaaS company in a row, we know what we needed to do to grow the business. We have our playbook, so to speak. That's a repeatable process mostly. So there were things in the business where we knew, hey, we know how to grow this company. We just need more money to grow it. And sure, you're reinvesting the profits every month into it, but the profits aren't so big in year one and year two. So you said, hey, if we could raise a little bit of money now and just pour gas in the fire on the channels that are working, we know we can grow this much faster if we just had more capital. Why wait 5 years when we could do this right now in 5 months? So that was the reason for our seed round and then Series A round.
Talk about the playbook for a second. What are some of the things that you've learned from the previous SaaS companies that okay, we're going to do ABC to grow this thing?
Yeah. So there's a sales playbook, a marketing playbook. So I'll give you just a few of the highlights and big points. So I think one of the biggest lessons we learned after our last company, Practice Panther, got acquired by ASG venture capital firm in San Francisco. And one of the things they did was start bringing in crazy talent to the company, amazing leadership, amazing people on the team. Their hiring process was incredible. They have this A-player hiring process with top grading. There's a great book they recommend called Who by Jeff Smart. And they taught us everything about hiring correctly and scorecards and job descriptions. Before we would be like, okay, 20-minute interview. You seem cool. When can you start? And now any position in the company, 5 interviews, multiple assessments. Like it's really hard to get into DoorLoop since day one of DoorLoop because of what we learned. So the biggest lesson we learned was bring in really good people. And we prefer to pay double and have someone that is so much better than someone who's just starting out as an example. And then we also look for a lot of skills and talent of someone that could grow and become a leader in the company. So I think hiring and the team was so important. We would never have grown this fast without the team that we have. Impossible. So that's number one. Number two, marketing, obviously SEO, blog, which the whole playbook changed today with AI. So that was always a big thing from early on. Get as much content out there, be a thought leader as early as possible, show people that you're pretty big, you're established, you're a thought leader in the industry, do podcasts and webinars. Exactly. Because when people are searching online and you're a brand new company, they don't necessarily know that you're a brand new company. So they're comparing you to all the other solutions out there. And if they start seeing your company everywhere on social media, on podcasts, on webinars, at shows, at events with thought leaders, a lot of this stuff is free. They start associating you like, oh, wow, they must be big and they must be good because they're everywhere. So that's also a strategy. And then, of course, if you have some investment or money behind you, investing in paid marketing channels, PPC, Google ads, Bing ads, Meta ads, stuff like that. If you're very good with that, like you really mastered it, landing page optimization, the whole funnel, A/B testing all the way through, then you could be pretty successful if you know how to do all that really well.
David, I want to dig into the hiring one first for a second. First of all, shout out to Chris Marceau, who's CEO of Top Grading. He's been on the podcast. Great book. And obviously, Who's a good book too. But yeah, they have a great methodology there. What do you do now as far as, because like we were talking about before we hit record, you raise money, you're going to be hiring more people. You already have 200 staff. What are some of the key pieces in the hiring process that you've learned?
Great question. So for us, we always call them A players, a term from ASG, and they always put people first. So that's one other thing we could talk about. But we love to see how much effort is someone putting into the application, the interview process. How badly do they want the job? How motivated are they? It's not so much of like you have the best experience, you went to the best school. It's more about A players stand out, and I'll give you some examples. We have a long application process when you just want to apply, maybe 10, 12 questions. Some are long answer format, paragraph format. We want to see how much effort people are putting into those questions. Some people put one-word answers. Some people put one line. Some people put paragraph answers. And then we want to see, hey, are you taking the time and effort to correct your spelling and grammar, or are you just being sloppy? If this is your work for applying to the company, then what is your work going to be like when you actually work at the company? Because now you should be putting your best foot forward. So we look at that also. After that process, we give them a little basic assessment, maybe 30 minutes. How much time and effort do they put into that? And if they don't really want it, they're gonna self-select out. They won't do it. So it's just the amount of effort people are putting into the process. That stands out.
Weeds people out.
It weeds people out, but the A players really start standing out. When you put them through all the hoops to get in.
No, thanks for that. I love that. And from a marketing perspective, right? I was reading somewhere, and you've said this before, you've generated millions and millions of views to your content from DoorLoop. So talk about that for a second and some of the things you do there.
Yeah, so that's changed dramatically over the years with AI now, and everyone can try to do it now. It's a little bit harder because there's just so much content online today. 5 years ago, you had to actually write the blog post yourself, and now you can go to ChatGPT, put a prompt in, and within 30 seconds, it's done. There's even softwares that can automate everything for you. So today, it's more going towards the quality over the quantity because quantity has exploded on Google. So Google's looking for, they say EAT. Expertise, authority, and trust. And there's another E they're adding in. Well, people are saying they're adding in, which is experience. Are you experienced? Should I listen to you? If I'm writing a blog post about plumbing, but I'm not a plumber, Google's probably going to rank another blog post higher that's written by a master plumber as an example. They want the experience there, right? So early on, it was about creating really, really, really high quality content that was 10 times better than anyone else out there. Meaning, if someone wrote a 1,000 word blog post, we would write a 3,000 word blog post with a video and infographics, right? So how can you 10x what the competition is doing?
Yeah, totally. And I would love to hear some lessons learned from the previous SaaS companies that and it could be mistakes, that you go, okay, on the next one, we're not going to do this again. I'm sure you didn't
Hiring?
make any mistakes, but if you
Yeah,
did,
oh boy, so much. So, early on, obviously, we didn't know much about like analytics or tracking, so we would just throw money everywhere and like, oh, we think it's working. So obviously, you can't improve what you don't track, and you have to measure and track everything, every single thing, especially if you're investing your own money. You're tracking it very carefully. So, but it's amazing how many business owners I speak to, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're doing wow, like we have like 3,000 followers on Instagram." I was like, "Wow, it's amazing. How much money did you make off that?" I don't know. I'm like, we think it's doing well. I'm like, so why are you wasting 3 hours a day posting on Instagram? Track and measure every single thing. And today it's easy to do that. So track and measure everything. Hire incredible people. We made some big mistakes early on, obviously, but you learn what to look for. Anything else?
what about in the
Yeah,
selling process that you learned from the last
yeah,
company?
yeah. So, okay, this is a obvious one. In every company, we always start off with like, what's the expression? Beggars can't be choosers. So we'll take everyone. Oh, if you can breathe, and you can be a client. So I think as you keep growing, you start actually narrowing your target audience more to exactly the ideal customer profile that you want to bring in versus just trying to get everyone in the door. And then what happens is when you start trying to get people to use your software, product, or service, and they're not really the right fit, it's going to blow up in your face. They're not going to be happy. They're going to churn or cancel. They're going to demand refunds. They're going to rant online on every channel you can imagine. And they're going to destroy the reputation of your company. And they really shouldn't have been, a customer in the first place. So today we are a lot more honest with people early on in the sales process. We say, hey, you're probably not the best fit for us. What you want to do, there's actually like probably 3 workarounds that we can maybe make it work, but just disclaimers, do other research. Maybe we'll even refer them to 2 other programs to look into. And if it's still they want to join, that they already know all the warning signs that we've given them.
What about from the acquisition process? What did you learn? I know with Practice Panther was acquired. Some, if someone's right now thinking of selling or they will be selling in the near future, what are some, kind of experience shares you would tell them based on your previous experience?
Yeah, get the most money possible. That's always number one. Meet with a few investors. Don't just take the first offer that comes on the table. For us, it was easier because we didn't have to look for investors to acquire our last 2 companies. They came to us. And when your company gets big enough, you're going to be getting solicitations on a weekly basis. You should be getting at least 2 to 3 emails a week of VCs, PEs looking to acquire or invest in your company, assuming you're doing well online, assuming it's a good market that they're looking into. And then the ball sort of is in your court. Like, hey, you came to me. So you can sort of start entertaining offers, seeing if you really want to sell, seeing if the time is right, seeing if the valuation is right. For us, we weren't always looking to sell, but along came a great investor with a great valuation, and they can be very they can work with you and be very creative to make sure that whatever you want, they can do. Like, hey, I don't want to leave the business. We can do that. Hey, I want to keep maybe X%. Maybe we can do that. So whatever you want with the right investor, they can make things happen for you. Now, sell your companies for the right reason. You know, I think if I were to do it again, maybe we would have held on a little bit longer. So there's a lot of companies now that say, hey, it's almost silly to sell your company when it's like on the rise. Like when you hit a certain amount of revenue, you're going to keep going. It's a snowball effect. There's a funny thing where it's like the first million is impossible. The next 10 million is whatever it is. And then from 10 million up, it's 10 to 100 million. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's already a snowball effect. Nothing can stop you. You're so big. So we should have probably maybe kept going because at that point, you're starting to dominate and it's hard to slow you down. So yeah, maybe consider not selling if you're doing so well.
How did you know it was the right time when you got approached?
For us at that time in our last company, at least, there were some things that concerned us, and you have an out and you have an exit. So you're saying, wow, look what just happened in that side of the market. Ooh, that competitor really can take us. We were scared, as every single entrepreneur is listening, they are always paranoid. And if not, you should be. You should always be looking over your back shoulder. What is the competitor doing? What can come and kill you tomorrow? Well, there's always the black swan, the unknown unknown. COVID, black swan. No one ever saw that coming. Some industries got decimated, some thrived. Who knows? So for us, there were some scares like that. So we said, okay, you know what? We're good. At least for us, we also had like our magic number in mind. If we ever hit this number, we don't want to be greedy. So we hit that number and we were scared and we were paranoid. We said, you know what? We're happy. Let's just get out from here. And the company was in really good hands. We chose a great investor that would continue the legacy, keep us on board for a little bit to ensure a smooth transition. And till today, this was maybe 7 years ago now. People that were there are still there today, which is a great sign. 8 to 10 years later, they're still there. That they take such good care of him. So it was in really good hands. That was also something that was important to us.
I want to hear about your transition. Did you stay on? Did you leave right away from the previous company? And I want to mention, I'm just comment on that paranoid thing because I always think of, I did the interview with Rand Fishkin, who started SEO Moz. Moz, it was later named, and he definitely, I don't know if you've heard his story, but he was on the rise, just growing and growing. He got a offer from HubSpot that would have been worth millions and millions of dollars, and he was like, no, I'm just going to keep growing. And so it is one of those stories that sticks in the back of my head about the paranoia that you're talking about that can happen. So
yes, everything at the right place, right time for everyone. Look, there's also the opposite story where Google offered 10 billion to this company and now it's worth not even 1 billion, right? So you never know. So when the timer's right, you'll know. Remind me again the last question.
Your transition period, what'd that look like from the last company?
Right. So in our case, we wanted to stay on for a little bit. We wanted to stay on to ensure a smooth transition, but also to learn from them. When a big company comes in, you want to see what are they doing? How are they going to grow this company? And also, every startup founder will know this. This company is like your baby. You gave birth to it. You grew it. It's a weird thing to say, but it's really your baby, your pride, love, joy. You're there every day, blood, sweat, tears, midnights, burning the midnight oil, 5 a.m.s. So it's hard to leave at the same time. And it takes some time to leave unless you really just want out. That's a different story. But for us, you want to stay, you want to hang on and see what's going on. And then when the time was right, we felt the time was right. They brought in new leadership. They had things under control. We felt it was in really good hands and the time was right. And that was it.
I want to give people, David, a bit of an idea more about DoorLoop and what you do, and talk about your father-in-law for a second.
Yeah, that's the story we were speaking about offline. So people always ask you, why do you do what you do? Why is DoorLoop so important to you? Why did you start DoorLoop? And so my father-in-law, this was one of the very, very, very early days where I recently got married, and then every Sunday we would go out to hang out with the family, hang out with my wife's family, and my father-in-law was always driving an hour and a half every Sunday to manage his properties. And, so the whole Sunday he was gone, managing his properties, collecting rent in person, knocking on doors, picking up checks or cash. And it was a very manual process, and it killed his family day every Sunday. So when we were launching DoorLoop, I was excited to get into his hands and see how it would change his life. And I didn't even realize how much it changed his life until actually COVID hit, because COVID, you had to go in person. It was really scary. Everyone's wearing masks, right? And I was seeing him every day pretty often. And I'm like, wow, hey, when's the last time you went to your properties? Were you just there this Sunday? And he's like, David, I haven't been there in 6 months. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, David, DoorLoop's changed my life. 95% of my tenants pay on time automatically on auto pay without me knocking on their door. Do you have any idea how much time I've saved thanks to you? I was like, wow. So that story hits home to me. And that's a big reason why we do what we do and what gets us amplified and motivated to do this work, because it just, we see the effects personally and in our family life. So, so that was a really nice story that I always think about.
In the very beginning, how did you get some of your first customers?
Network, right? Your own personal network, friends, family connections. Early on, we probably also offered it. I don't even remember now. free beta to a few people, maybe like 10, 20 beta customers. Come test us out and see what you think. Maybe we did some basic ads just to get some early testers in here. And we told them the drill. Hey, we're an MVP. We're in beta stat mode right now. The software's free. Don't worry. Just give us your feedback. And there's that curve, like the innovation adoption curve. Is that what it's called? So you have like the first 2.5% are like the innovators that are going to join your company. And then you have the early adopters. Then you have the mainstream. Then you have the laggards who get an iPhone 20 years later. So we were looking for that 2.5%, those innovators and early adopters that love, like probably like me and you, we love trying out new software, even if it's in beta. Cool, that's okay. It's okay if it has some bugs. We're willing to try it out if it's new and cool, especially if it's free. That's nice. So yeah, we found those people and they helped us grow, and they're still with us today.
And, we were talking about customers for a second. I know you have different segments of customers. Talk
Yep.
about the evolution of that. And I'm going to pull it up for a second because I think it's
Yep.
it's interesting to see here. We have residential, commercial, community associations, and affordable housing.
Yep. And when we started, we were everything. If you manage boats, if you manage, storage facilities, so we had a lot more on our website that we were advertising against. And it wasn't a great fit. Like I said, you can't be the best in everything. So you have to start, you know, narrowing your focus, narrowing your niche, finding your niche market, your ideal audience, and can you be the best in the world at one or two of these audiences? And that's what we decided to do. We want to be the best in the world at residential and commercial properties for 1 to 1,000 units for property owners and property managers. And as we grow, the unit count will grow, the features will grow, and we'll be able to handle even larger portfolios. So, I mean, we have some that are over 1,000 already today, but the majority, that's what we're looking for right now to service.
And then I want you to talk about pricing for a second. That can be kind
Yep.
of a tough nut for people to crack and to
Yep.
figure out. How did you decide on different pricing and maybe how does it evolved from the beginning?
Yeah. So obviously you're looking at all your competitors, right? You're probably dropping them into spreadsheets or Google Sheets and saying, okay, ABC competitor, what do they charge? What are their packages? What features do they offer? And then early on, some people might want to charge more, but early on, it's hard to charge more than your competitors if you don't have a relatable software that can compare with competitors that's in the same feature parity as the competitors. So if you offer half the features, you probably shouldn't be double the price of your competitors unless you're doing something so radically different and amazing that adds so much value that no one else is doing. That's a different story. So for us, we started lower than the competitors. And then as we grew and as our feature set grew and as we added features that our competitors don't have, we became more valuable. So we started increasing the prices accordingly.
And you also have an interesting story about a family friend.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's always exciting when you're building your company and you have someone use your software that you know in your inner circle, friend or family, that doesn't realize it's your software. And then one day he's like, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe this. I just did business with someone and they use your software. Or I manage, so I have a family friend and he had no idea that I was involved at all or, let alone a co-founder of DoorLoop. And he ended up moving his portfolio from Appfolio, another software company in our space, to DoorLoop because he had issues with them and he loved our software so much he became one of our biggest raving fans. And only months later did we actually make the connection that it's me and it's him. Wow, I can't believe it's you. You're using our tool. And that was such a cool feeling to know that you have friends and family starting to use your tool without them even knowing that it's yours to begin with. So that's always maybe some validation that's always nice to get.
I'm looking here. You actually have
Yep.
you have a raving fans page here.
Yep.
Who are ideal clients? Are they ones that they're property management companies managing a bunch of properties, or are they individual investors that have maybe 10 properties? Who's tends to be ideal for you?
You know what? It's a combination of all those because there are two main customer types in our industry. It's property owners, they own the property, they're the landlord, you can say, or real estate investor, they own the property. Sometimes they will manage it themselves. Sometimes they don't want to deal with the management. They don't want to collect rent. They don't want to deal with maintenance requests. They say, you know what? I'm going to hire a management company to handle everything for me, and they could take 15% of my rent in exchange. So that's the other side of the customers, which is the property management company that manages the properties for them. So you'll see here, a lot of them start off, there's like an industry term now called like accidental landlords. Like they didn't mean to be a landlord. They fell into it. Maybe their parents had a property or they had a property that they're now, they bought a second home. So, hey, let's not sell our original home. Let's start renting it. And now all of a sudden you are an accidental landlord. You fell into a property somehow. So we have a bunch of those and they start collecting rent and they start making some passive income. They say, wait a minute, this could be a good business. And they buy another property and another property, another. So that's how a lot of real estate investors grow.
When you raised a Series B for $100 million, what, obviously they're asking, what would you do with the money? At that point, okay, you're getting this influx. What's the plan? What do you tell them on what you're going to do?
So first off, you better know that answer before you even go out to consider raising money. So for us, we had a very, very lengthy plan and spreadsheets and budgets and forecasts and everything you can imagine when raising that amount of money. And it all goes towards growing the company and making the customer experience better for both our customers and our customers' customers, which are the tenants paying rent. How can we make their experience also better? Because if their experience is better, that means they're going to continue renting and renewing their lease with the landlord. Everyone's happy. It's a win-win for everyone. So we always think about that. So in our case, we had a very detailed plan of exactly what the money is going to be used for. So as an example, hey, we want to start doing, I'm making this up, we want to start doing big trade shows. Wow, that's going to cost us $2 million a year. Okay, wow, okay, so we need at least 3 years runway. We need $6 million for trade shows. And we want to hire 100 developers. That's going to cost us $10 million a year. Okay, so we need $30 million for that. Okay, right? So just like you start coming up with these exercises. Okay, and if you had 100 more developers, what could you do with the product? How many more features can you have? Can you grow your customer base? Can you have add-on products? So all of these things come into it. It's months long of talks, months long of strategies before you actually start going out to raise. So when that question comes up, that's already in your pitch deck. Like, hey, this is exactly what we're doing with the money. So, and they know it. No one raises that much money without knowing that. But that's a good lesson even for seed or Series A. What are you going to do with the money? You should know. And make sure you never run out of runway and run out of cash, because then you're going to be in a big trouble because you're going to have to raise when you need to. And you don't want to raise money when you need to, because your valuations will get crushed. They feel it. So every time we raised, we didn't need to. We just wanted to. We didn't have to, but we wanted to grow the company further.
David, is there something, and the answer may be no, that you found that you had to defend more to the investors than other things, as far as growing the company? Like what you would use it for, like that you were getting questioned on, but you found they were bringing something up on the plan, and you were adamant, like, no, that actually, we've thought about this, and you defended it.
You know what? For us, anytime, we love advice, right? And that's why we're partnering with a company like this with a VC or PE. We want their advice. We want their expertise. We've only done this 3 times. They do this 20 times a year. They have hundreds of portfolio companies. They learn from all of them. So we love the advice. And for us, the answer is always the same. Like, oh, that's interesting feedback. Are you okay if we test that theory? Like, hey, as a made up example, we want to do that $100,000 trade show. Well, I don't know if you should. Well, okay. Instead of doing 10 of those, are you okay if we do 1 and we see the results and we go from there? Okay, sure. In the question that you asked, nothing really major comes to mind. Obviously, they want to know, hey, our entire product team is in Israel, the most talented developers in the world. And there's so much talent in Israel. So they always was curious, hey, what's so special about Israel if they've never invested in, in an American Israeli company? And why can't you hire developers in Miami or the US? What's wrong with Seattle developers or New York or California developers? So, obviously we explain the differences, and we already have a team and a partner in Tel Aviv, and we already have an office, and we already have the team there, and the talent is incredible there, and everything's incredible there. So maybe
did you
that
ever have
it.
who were worried about that? Obviously, there seems to be always some type of turmoil in Israel. Did you have
Yeah.
any people question that or worried about that there's people and staff and companies even based there?
For sure. I mean, yes, that's always a concern for everyone, especially since the tragedy of October 7th last year. So it's always on top of everyone's mind. However, it's an easy answer once they see that Israel really is a startup nation, how much good has come out of Israel, how many changes to society have come because of Israel, positive changes, how many massive companies are in Israel. You're talking the Googles of the world, they're all in Israel. Intel, they all have offices in Israel. Monday.com, I mean, really big publicly traded companies are in Israel, hiring rapidly and expanding in Israel. So that alone gives a lot of confidence to a lot of people. Then when you explain the culture and the resilience of the people in Israel, they start to understand that, hey, nothing can stop them. They want to go back to life, back to normal. If a massive attack happens on a Monday, they might be back in the office on a Tuesday. They just want to go back to normal and work hard and hit their goals, and they're winners in every sense of that word.
I love what you said. Thanks for sharing that. I remember interviewing some, Israeli founders after October 7th, and they were just wanting to go back, and they were,
Yeah.
you know, on doing an interview, and some of them had to run back and forth to a bomb shelter during the
Yep.
interview. And there's like,
Yep.
I'm like, are you sure you want to reschedule this? Like, no, no, I don't want to reschedule.
Yeah.
Let's do this. So
Yeah.
I
They started
totally,
adding Wi-Fi to their bomb shelters, bringing their working from there. It just became it's unfortunate, but it became the norm. And it's the same in their homes, by the way. They wake up at 3 a.m. with a siren, and they have to rush their kids over to a shelter or a stairwell. But unfortunately, it's the norm, and they're used to it at this point. Yeah.
I love what you said about how to make the customers experience better. And
Yeah.
what are some features that you included for that purpose that you realized through this kind of journey, not just your customer's journey, but your customer's journey? What were some of the features you included to make that better and easier?
Yeah. So very important to us was to release a very, very, very easy mobile app for iPhone and Android, because a lot of the tenants like to pay rent on their phone as user-friendly, convenient as possible, along with desktop on the computer as well. So making sure we spend a lot of time on the tenant portal and not just the product that our customers use, but our customers use. That was very important and still is very important to us. I'll give you a random example right now. You know, a lot of the tenants that pay rent speak Spanish, in some states in the US, especially in Florida. So they don't understand English so well. They may not understand the convenience fees, or they can pay by credit card. They can, it's not first language. So we are now working on translating the tenant portal to Spanish and eventually other languages too, just to make it more user friendly for them. So things like that help. We'll also monitor what tenants are saying, complaints we receive, maybe online or in person. Wow, that's a really good complaint. It's really good advice. Let's go fix that. So we're really, even today, as big as we got, we're really big on the user voice, and we always want to listen and monitor all the chatter online. What are people saying? How can we improve? If someone puts up any bad review online today, I'm in charge of that, and I disseminate that to over 15, 20 leaders in the company. Everyone is reading it. Everyone is taking note, and how could we fix that and make that customer happy, and all customers in the future happy? Because if one person's complaining, they must be really upset, but a lot of people are probably thinking the same thing. So the user voice is really important to us.
David, I have one last question. And I'd love for you to share mentors. It could be distant mentors, meaning like resources, books, or actually personal mentors, or both. Before you answer that, I just want to point people. Thanks for sharing your journey, your knowledge, and your stories. I want to encourage people to check out doorloop.com. If you know someone who could use it, check it out. It's a really slick platform and website, and we had pulled it up multiple times here. So I'd love to hear mentors. It could be, some of your favorite books, or actual mentors, or both.
Yeah. So I read a lot of books. That's probably one of the biggest ways I've ever learned anything, on the job learning, and also books. You have incredibly talented, successful, smart people that want to share their life's work and lessons and experience, and they're doing it for $9.99. It's come on, it's amazing. Audiobooks, physical books, doesn't really matter. So I've learned majority of what I know today from books, and personally from YouTube. Doesn't really matter to the channel. Doesn't, Instagram, TikTok, doesn't really matter. But I watch a lot of YouTube videos on learning whatever I want to learn. You can learn online. You want to learn how to do Google Ads? There's a 500-page textbook, and there are thousands of videos you could watch, for anything you want to do. So there is so much content out there and so many experienced people. So I do follow many. I subscribe to many YouTube channels, many people online, a lot of like SaaS channels, like SaaSter is one of them as an example. And on SaaSter, they have their annual, talks and events, and they have amazing speakers that, like Sam Altman, I've watched 1,000 times, who's now, CEO of ChatGPT, OpenAI. So I've watched a ton of his videos, and there's so much to learn. There's so many, mentors you could have that don't know you, but you know them, and you just consume their information. So that's like the learning side of it.
Yeah.
On
What
the
are some of your
personal side-
favorite books?
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
do you typically do Audible, or are you reading them? What are some of your favorite? I know you mentioned Top Grading and Who and Lean Startup. Any other favorites? I don't know if you use
Yeah.
Audible, but if you want to pull it up and share a few of your favorites, I'd love
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got it right
hear.
here. So, so I'll give your listeners a little secret. That's what they get for listening. They get a little tip. So I have a really hidden page. I've never actually shared this with anyone publicly, but all my friends and family, whenever they ask me for books, coworkers, I shared it today twice already. So I have a list of like my favorite books that I just keep adding to. It's not even very long. It's hard to make it into this list for me. And it's the link is David M, like Maria, and then my last name Baton.com/books. And so that link has my favorite books. Now, I'm just looking at that list right now. Some of my,
Am I
so
allowed to pull
I
that
like to
up
read,
right now? Oh, I see that.
I
Yeah.
like to read physical books. I like to read it. I can highlight, I can
Am I
remember, I
allowed to
can,
share this right now or no?
yeah, yeah, yeah. You can
Oh,
definitely share
okay.
it. It's okay. Um, 80/20 sales and
Yeah.
marketing. That
Oh,
was one
Perry
of
Marshall. Yeah, Perry Marshall's been on
Barry
the
Marshall.
podcast. That's a great one.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
Perry's been
Uh,
on. We had never split the difference. Chris Voss has been on the podcast. That's a
really?
favorite
Wow.
one. That was a good one. Love that one. Yeah, Perry. We'll give Perry a shout out. I'll let him know that we mentioned him
Harry
today.
is one of my favorite authors ever. I'm pretty sure I found
Wow,
him in, I think, Forbes. I think he was like a Forbes author. And I think I bought every single book that he wrote. It was so,
he's a smart dude.
yeah. Yeah. I think he wrote, I think, The Ultimate Guide to Google Ads. Almost positive that was
Oh,
him. And
he
that was,
was early on to Google Ads, like one of the early people on to kind of really work that platform. Let's see here.
yeah. So I bought his book in June 2014, The Ultimate Guide to
Here you
Google
go.
Ads. That book changed my life, changed my business. One of the best books I ever read. 80/20 sales and marketing, ultimate guide to Facebook ads. Like I bought a lot of his stuff. I love Perry Marshall. So highly recommend Perry Marshall. Never Split the Difference, one of the best sales books ever. Raving Fans, also incredible about customer service. Extreme Ownership by Jocko, also great. I mean, there's some good ones on here. Yeah.
Love
Yeah, I
it.
love a lot of these.
Radical Candor. I had them
Yeah.
on. That was a good
Yep.
one. Kim. Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing these. And you were saying mentors.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
throughout life, you have some personal mentors. My father has always been a great mentor for me. Anytime I need to bounce ideas, he's always going to give me, as non-biased opinion as possible. He's always directed me in many times of my life, like at those crossroads, at those really pivotal moments. What do I do? He's luckily given me like the right, path. So thank God there's usually, maybe 5 times in my life, but a handful of times in people's lives that you can count on your hands of massive critical turning points in your life that you need to make the right decision. So when you realize those are those moments, try to get as many people as possible to weigh in on that decision. And that's what I did. Friends, family, anyone really that can help you out in those points.
David, I will be the first one to thank you. Thank you for sharing. Everyone can check out doorloop.com and more episodes of the podcast, and we'll see everyone next time. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, David.
Thanks so much again.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.